If I seem a little nervous, I want to tell you why right off the bat. Now, I present a lot. I have the opportunity to present in front of crowds like this quite a bit. I've never done a TED Talk before, but the reason I'm nervous is I'm about to share a story about myself that I've never shared with anybody else in public. My family in the audience knows the story, but I've never had the opportunity to talk about a personal journey that I've been on for 57 years. I'm about to be incredibly vulnerable. I'm about to share the power of authenticity with you, realness and openness. And I hope tonight you take away a few pearls from my experience that you can apply in your own lives. But I am looking for a little bit of grace, because as I was coming up here and thinking about tonight, I said, I'm about to do something I've never done before, and I'm a little nervous about it. My journey started in New England. I grew up in the 70s. I grew up north of Boston in a town called Swampscott, Massachusetts. And when I was in third grade, I remember my parents, myself, getting called in to the school where my parents and I were sat down. It was 1975. And the principal and the teachers told my parents that John isn't learning like the rest of the kids in class. He's not paying attention. He's not focusing. He's struggling, and he's behind. We think there's something wrong with him. Well, I mean, think about that. In the mid-70s, we weren't plugged into a lot of things back then. We struggled with a lot of things in the mid-70s and early 80s. But think about that for a minute. You're sitting in a room with your parents, you're a child, and you're hearing, you're not like everyone else. You learn differently. Well, after that conversation, my family and I quickly found out that I had a learning disability. I'm dyslexic. I learn differently. I think a little bit differently. I go at my own pace. But imagine that at that young age. So what did my parents do? Well, they immediately sought help. And I ended up going to a school for a period of time called the Landmark School in Manchester, Massachusetts. Landmark, it's a school that exists today. It's world-renowned for teaching people like me how to learn. Teaching people like me that what was called a learning disability is not really a learning disability. It's just a different way you learn and receive information. That school taught me how to learn. It taught me to embrace the disability and see it as a strength and not a weakness. Now, as I was going through that school back in the 70s, what they wanted you to immediately do after you went, they immediately wanted you to get back into the mainstream of schools. And in my case, it was leaving Manchester, Massachusetts, and going back to Swampscott into a public school. And I went to a public school called the Stanley School. Typical, quintessential elementary school in New England. They did something the year before you went permanently. They did something called the bridge year. The bridge year was interesting. You'd get up in the morning, you'd go to Landmark, you'd go to school at Landmark, and then at about 11 o'clock in the morning, you'd get on a bus and you'd travel down to your school. And in my case, it was a 30-minute bus ride a few towns away to the south. Now, the bus I boarded, I was the only student on the bus. It was literally a short yellow bus. Yep, I know you can laugh. It's like, should we laugh? Shouldn't we laugh? Is that okay? It's okay. It's okay, because it really happened. I would drive, it doesn't stop there. 5 days a week, I would drive up to that elementary school at about 11:30. The bus would go up a driveway. There'd be about 300 kids running around at recess. The first thing they see is that yellow bus. I get up, the door opens, I get out, and about half the kids say, "Who's the kid getting off the bus? Hey, everybody, it's me." Then the bus had to leave. Well, like most buses, when you back up, a beeping goes off. Beep, beep, beep. So the other half of the kids that didn't know I actually arrived, they were notified I arrived. I was the kid who got off the yellow short bus, and every single day, 300 kids said, "Well, who's he? And why is he here half a day and not a full day?" So I spent my elementary years explaining who I was. And you know, there's a tendency in our society to fear what you don't know or what you don't understand or what you don't appreciate. I mean, think about it. Think about your own lives, because I'm willing to bet that most of you in this auditorium have dealt with your own obstacles, dealt with your own challenges. And we all have them. It's not the obstacle or the challenge that's the issue. It's how we choose to deal with them that you have to contemplate. So, what did I do? Well, when I got a little older, I didn't know it at the time, but I was confronted with two paths. The first, I could have taken the path of defeat. I could have been the victim. I could have blamed others. I could have sat back and just allowed life to happen around me and candidly blame my learning disability, blame dyslexia. And again, back then, we did not have a real understanding of what that was. So could you only imagine what people said about people like me who learned differently, who thought a little differently? Horrible, horrible things. Now, I'm not sharing this with you for anyone to feel bad, because this experience defined who I am today. This experience allowed me to understand what grit and courage and determination is all about. Thank God I didn't have the words Dan put up on that screen a moment ago where he talked about the tech presentations with all the cool sayings. I was like, my chief of staff looked at me and said, "Thank God we don't have any of those words up there." I said, "Phew." She wanted them, I didn't know. But I chose the path of grit and courage and determination. I was not satisfied with being seen as less than. It wasn't okay that people didn't invite me to the parties or invite me into their friend groups because I learned differently or I was different. There was a person early on in my life that I absolutely admired. One of the most effective presidents of our time, Theodore Roosevelt. Today, living in America today, we still take advantage of the policy changes that he made for this country. We still feel those effects of his leadership. Roosevelt had a disability. He was a severe asthmatic in a time where they didn't have a cure for asthma. They didn't have a treatment, a therapy for asthma. Kids that were severe asthmatics stayed home, did nothing, were relegated to being seen as less than. Not our president. He rose to the highest position in our land. He had many great quotes. My favorite quote is the man in the arena. Because when you're confronted with obstacles, and most of us in this room have had them or continue to have them, the obstacle is there. You have a choice on how you are going to confront it and work through it. I chose to be in the arena. It is not okay for me, and it shouldn't be okay for you to sit on the sidelines and look into the arena. I want to be neck deep in the issues. I want to be neck deep in partnering and collaborating with people. I do not want to be the cold and timid soul that sits outside that arena and points at the people that are in it. I had a choice. It affected how I lead and how I treat others. So let me talk to you for a moment about my construct. A big shout out to the University of South Florida, and you were going to hear from President Ria Law soon. But I went back to school and got my doctorate in the Mumma College of Business. And the thing that I studied was this construct. I wanted to understand in a deeper, more meaningful way, not just the experiences I had as a child, but how do I apply management principles and science to a model that teaches me and others how to treat each other. It teaches me and other leaders how to lead other people. That experience at the university was transformational for me because it provided real science, both from a management and a social perspective, that helped frame my experiences in. So let me spend a minute on it. This, by the way, can be applied to any situation, personally or professionally, whether you're a leader or not. There are 4 characteristics that I live my life by because of my experiences. The first is authenticity. I'm here to tell you that this world needs more authentic people and leaders in it. Because when you open yourself up and you show the world around you and the people around you who you truly are, idiosyncrasies and all, and we all have them. There's not a single, I've never met a single perfect person. We all have them. But when you show yourself really to people, you show yourself who you are, there's a relatability to that. There's a connection that gets created. I tell my people all the time, don't come to me and be a version of yourself that you think you want me to, that I want you to be. Be who you are and be proud of that and own that and work on the things you need to work on. Kindness. Lead with love and empathy and kindness. We truly are our brothers and sisters' keepers. We are here to lean on each other. We are here to love each other. The notion is simply this: to get the best out of you, I'm going to build you up, not break you down. Why do people spend more time breaking other people down? Because it's easy. It's hard, it's harder to build that person up. But you do that through kindness, love, and empathy. Transparency. Transparency is powerful. Explain the why behind every decision you make, even if the person doesn't want to hear it or doesn't agree with it. Be transparent even if it hurts. And finally, vulnerability. This is an interesting one. People often think, particularly in leadership, that if you're vulnerable, you can't be strong. I have leaders tell me all the time, I can't be vulnerable. I'm a leader. I have to show strength. I tell people, strength and vulnerability are next door neighbors. You cannot be vulnerable if you're not strong, and you cannot be strong if you're not vulnerable. And it takes confidence in yourself to admit when you make a mistake, to apologize, to ask for help. I'm going to tell you, if you can do it, it's magical. It's absolutely magical. I tell my team all the time at Tampa General and USF, we either rise together or we fall together, but we do it together. Now, what happens when you lead like this? It's amazing. You unlock and unleash the human potential. Now, by the way, we don't have time tonight. There is a ton of data that support everything I'm talking about. Not only do we not have time, but I'd also bore you to tears if I actually showed you all this data. But I will point out a couple things that I think everybody can relate to, because most of us in the audience either own businesses, run businesses, work in businesses. Something we do at TGH and at USF is we survey our team members every year. We ask them how we're doing. And we don't just ask them, but we use the data to make ourselves better, stronger, more resilient. Our team member engagement scores for the last 5 years, top quartile in the United States. Our people at TGH and USF will run through a wall for themselves, for each other, and for the collective organization because they are engaged. They understand the mission, the vision. They appreciate the way we lead. Psychological safety. If you really want to create, if you really want to innovate, if you really want to make a difference, ask yourselves if you've created in your businesses and your organizations an environment where people can be the best versions of themselves without the fear of judgment. I tell my team all the time, if you want to, it's okay to fail, fail fast. Learn from it, move on. And when these things happen, organizational performance, and in my life, clinically, operationally, and strategically, explode. And you're making a difference for the communities that you're serving. Now, as I wrap things up, I want to leave you with some things to simply contemplate at the break, on your way home, something to discuss at the dinner table. 5 considerations. Ask yourselves, how authentic and relatable are you? Do you create in an environment at home or at work or in your community where you're opening yourself up to others so they can see who you really are? Impart wisdom and offer direction. If you don't share your wisdom and your experience, it's wasted. Why would you do that to another person? And I don't mean you're sharing just your successes, but I'm also talking about sharing your failures, your challenges, because you can learn more from those than you can the wins. Be kind, be loving. Ask yourself, how do you do that? How do you create that environment? How do you show real vulnerability? And as my wife, who's in the audience tonight, will always say to me and the kids, say what you mean and mean what you say. Be good as your word. Tonight, I hope, by standing up here and opening myself up to you, after 57 years of dealing with dyslexia for the first time in my life, I'm in front of you thanks to TEDx, sharing my story. So my hope is I can be an example to others in the audience. Thank you very much for your time and attention.